Hello everyone. Some of you may be here specifically from my previous Virtua football video, which did very well for a channel of my size. Once the algorithm picked it up, it really took off. Today we are going to start the player mode playthrough. The first order of business is to pick a starting nation and team, and I'm going with Wolverhampton as for what I'm trying to do, it is the closest fit in regards to location and kit colour. I'm bringing back a player from my Football Tactics and Glory playthrough, Binns. I never established what his first name is during the playthrough, so I'm just going to say now, Gary Binns. He was a centre forward with a Tim Cahill-esque ability of scoring goals with his head. Accordingly, I don't envision Binns as being especially tall, because Cahill wasn't, but they both have an uncanny knack for being in the right position and leaping over the pack. Our keywords therefore should reflect this, but we actually want to take sharp shooting over powerful heading because otherwise we end up with less heading skill for whatever reason. Good overlapping improves speed, counter-attack ability and jumping improves our heading skill further, and that's that. Let's get started. Our first order of business is a mini-game, and since we're a striker we're playing the attack mini-game. This in theory is pretty easy at level 1, it's a 2-on-1 situation. We score the first goal just fine, but then weird things start happening. I get through on the keeper, only for the shot to go straight down his throat. Third attempt, this one really should have gone in, but somehow it stayed out. So we only get 1 out of 3, and you really need 2 to be optimal. But this is a one-shot playthrough. Much like Elmast, if things don't go according to plan, I'm just going to have to roll with it. Now I have to pick my match difficulty for the season, and I'm going to go with normal throughout this playthrough. I'll elaborate on what difficulty does when I get to it. Same is true of most of the advice this guy can give us, though I will bring attention to relation and his comment about the better our relation rating is, the better our club will perform in the league. So that should be our first priority. These next 3 weeks, all of our extra training is relation focused, and at the end of the 3rd week you'll see that we cross the threshold into a 4 out of 10 rating. Now an interview, and I want to raise my ego so I can start getting attacking boosts from training, but in order to do that, oftentimes the answers you need to give are counterintuitive. In this case, downplaying the team's chances and atmosphere will raise our ego. And as long as positive ego is active, you get random boosts to attacking skills every week. Now that our motivation is full, we can do some off-pitch activities. I want to purchase a pair of football boots for later training purposes. I'm going to get the speed boots, and once I equip them, every time we train speed, we'll get bigger boosts than we otherwise would have. The start of September brings with it the first match that we'll actually get to play, but only the second half. The game first has to generate a scenario for us to jump into, and this is where difficulty comes into play, because on easy difficulty you're almost always gifted an advantage. On hard difficulty it's very rare that you start with the lead. Normal difficulty is the sweet spot, because although this time we were spotted a 3-goal advantage, more often or not the game still hangs in the balance on normal difficulty, allowing the player to determine their own fate more often than not. I'm having to defend this lead with 10 men, but as you can see that hasn't been a major issue. We're 70 minutes in, still 3 goals up, and just trying to get Binns involved in the action here. Can't really add to our score. Sheffield United do get one serious opportunity to score a goal off a corner kick, but it is saved by Postma. The scoreline remains unchanged to the end. 3-0 win for us. This helps nudge our league ranking in the right direction by giving us an extra 10 relation points, equivalent to 1 notch in the gauge. Binns also gets a considerable amount of dribble pace and skill because I gave him several touches where he ran with the ball. If you're wondering why I didn't bother to rest before that match, it's because it doesn't make a difference. In matches and mini-games, your condition is always set to its maximum. But it does mean that we are at risk of getting injured if we try to train more, so let's have a rest week. As for the boots we just equipped, they only affect regular extra trainings and not mini-games. So let's do some more relation training. This really should have been 3 out of 3 successes, but for whatever reason my goalkeeper on the second attempt decided to be a moron. Here's what I was trying to do though. I retreat into my own box and then I start doing lofted passes from side to side. This is useful because the CPU doesn't really know how to diffuse this, and for every non-basic pass you do, you score bonus points in this minigame. When you have a higher time limit in later levels, this can snowball into a lot of points. But now is when we can start putting those speed boots to use, and when we train speed, we also build up stamina, which is important because my player was exhausted at the end of the last game. After this session, we get pulled aside by R. Edwards, who has girlfriend trouble, and if I take the cocky approach of asking to talk to her, I can build up more ego, which will allow us to continue getting those attack boosts. That was especially timely because this manager pep talk is going to reduce our ego a little bit, since we're still considered to be a mid-table club. After another speed training session, Cameron offers me a chance to do some more training, which is really good because I was going to rest the following turn anyway, and this just lets me get a few extra improvement points in. So I'll jump past that rest week and into me playing the relation minigame again. On level 2 you have to hold the ball for 30 seconds, but that just gives me more time to score more points with lofted passes. Pick up 17,000 points and 40 motivation right away. After that it was back to speed training, and then Seol asks if we want to go have a meal. There's really no reason to say no here. It's virtually 3 motivation. We do spend 2,000 euro dollars, but though we may be broke this season, that's hardly a drop in the ocean once we get our big payday. Our November schedule, therefore, is the same as October's. Speed training, rest since our motivation will be maxed, minigame. And if our motivation wasn't already maxed, this event featuring the webmaster would have sealed it. But in week 3, I decide, well, I've got enough relation for the time being, let's try attack again. I thought this was going to be easy because 3 on 2, maybe I don't get it first try, but I could at least score 1 goal out of 3. But for whatever reason, I was either incredibly unlucky this season or underestimated how difficult the jump from level 1 to 2 was going to be. This means my motivation is stuck on 0, and to add insult to failure, my player decides he doesn't feel like training on week 4. Though we do at least get a chance to talk with Edwards afterwards about practice, and that allows us a rare boost to our leadership, the hardest attribute in the game to raise otherwise. We have another match now at the start of December, and our motivation concerns have now been fixed by this pre-game supporter event. I should explain to anyone who isn't here for the essay that motivation is important because it determines how good your gains in auto training are, as well as extra training, but if you try to do extra training when your motivation is full, you do a mini game. But while I was yapping about game mechanics, we entered the second half against Plymouth with the score still 0-0, so this result is all in my hands. Though I realise I used this particular match as background footage towards the end of my video essay, so let's skip ahead to the part of the match I didn't show. Still no goals with 67 minutes played, but now we're putting something together. Naylor, our fullback, is running an overlap. Maybe I should have gone low to bins in retrospect because this attempt to loop one up goes straight down a Plymouth player's head. In the aftermath of that, Plymouth almost get a chance of their own, but Lescott is there to make the tackle before Chadwick can get it off. Later on the game, Binns has some space to run, but he's once again exhausted. Have to go one-on-one to try and get some space again, but perhaps it was a little bit too obvious that I was going to try and cut right and cross. This game uses 5-minute halves by default, so both sides certainly had time and chances to score here, but in the end neither did, so it's going to be a draw. But that's actually a decent result for player mode because our relation rating improves by 5 anyway. Just as long as you don't lose, because a loss reduces your relation by 5 instead. Speaking of, I think it's time we went and maxed it out. We're up to level 3 of this minigame, and I'm going to show a sped up attempt, a successful attempt, because I want to show that my trick works on all levels. There was someone in the comments of the essay that said that the defense minigame they believe is the easiest, but I think once you know what to do, relation is easier actually. I do agree, however, that defenders are the easiest player type to build overall. I remember a defender playthrough I did back in the day. I got called up to the national team in Season 2, whereas I don't think you can get that with a midfielder or striker before Season 3. Anyway, it's Christmas, and that also means winter break until January week 3. You may have noticed that our ego has decayed back into the neutral zone. There are a few ways I could fix this now. I could go to the clinic, but I'm actually going to try the theatre and hope for a good role. A good movie raises your ego significantly, and that's what we got, so we're back in the positive for now. On the first new year after your career starts, your in-game brother introduces you to an agent, and this is pretty important because this is the guy that's going to attract offers for us to sign for bigger and better clubs. To sum up what he's saying here, we can transfer clubs at the end of each season. We can't do it mid-season, no January transfer window for us, but we'll probably be looking to move on from Wolverhampton, mostly because of the money. But that's just all the more reason for us to give Wolverhampton our best so that we can impress the big clubs and make that big transfer. I was originally going to do this entire season in one video, but we're already 12 minutes in. I think I'm going to split this playthrough, 2 episodes per season. Let's skip to where I'm going to cut the video, showing off that maxing out our relation has put us top of the table. So, as long as we don't lose either of the 2 games we are set to play, we should be able to win this title.